Hello and welcome back to Learn Faeria. This week we will dive into the new Pandora mode and unlock its secrets. This was unlocked after the community played 100,000 games of Highlander. However, Pandora is a very different mode and this video will get you up to speed with the rules. To access Pandora you can buy a key for 200 gold. Doing well in Pandora will reward you with golden packs. Once Pandora is unlocking, the colours shown on the door will indicate what colours you have access to in your draft. Pandora is a game mode where you create a 30 card deck using cards outside of your collection. For each card in your deck you will decide from a selection of 5 random cards. These cards will be selected from the 3 colours unlocked by your key. You will also be able to select neutral cards. You will repeat this process until you have a 30 card deck. When drafting, you want to develop a deck with an archetype or theme in mind. This becomes more apparent as you draft the cards and spot synergies within them. This rule applied when building a Highlander deck. The only difference now is the card selection is out of your control. So when drafting, you want to stick to 3 archetypes: aggro, midrange and control. Identifying these archetypes will come with practice as you get more used to the cards and how they fuel a certain strategy. The colours we have been given are green, blue and yellow. We won't have access to any red cards during this draft. Here we have a selection of coloured cards and a neutral. The first thing we want to do is get a strong core of creatures. We can pick up events and locations once we have a good idea of the direction of the deck. Let's look at our first selection. Plaguebearer is a neutral, so he can be picked up if we want some more consistency. His effect is one that can have a big impact on the board. Gabrian Enchantress may be useful if we pick up some high health creatures. Wild Growth and Windborn are quite situational right now and we will focus on creatures. Windstorm Champion synergizes with events, which is a poor game plan in a draft format. Gabrian Enchantress has the potential to create a strong green-blue deck. If we go for the Gabrian now, we're committing to a colour. I feel it's the best creature out of the selection. So let's draft the rest of the deck and keep in mind what direction we want this deck to go in. We've started off with the Gabrian Enchantress. She could have some influence if we go down a blue-green line and using these high health green creatures to interact with Gabrian, but she's just one of many cards. So we don't really want to build too many interactions off that card alone, but it could help if we get enough cards from the green and blue pool to fuel something like that strategy. After picking blue, I feel that blue and green will probably synergize better together overall. It's been tried and tested in Constructed, and Sturdy Turtle is a card that does interact with Gabrian Enchantress and gives us Aquatic, so it allows us to harvest Faeria in the earlier game. So I think I'm going to go for the Sturdy Shell. So looking at the other cards, we still haven't committed to our second colour. It's only blue we're rolling with right now. And I think Maceman is probably going to be the best kind of mid-range minion. Cutthroat Bandit is a little too vulnerable to stuff like Falcon Dive and Bloodspitter, for example. So Maceman is probably the best mid-range creature out of this selection. Slyland Warrior could provide some defenses. He has a nice health stat. He also interacts pretty well with Gabrian Enchantress. Cutthroat Bandit is a little too vulnerable to removal. Blood Collector is a nice cheap minion on the green side that could harvest us some Faeria. So I kind of feel like these 3 are the best out of the selection, and that's kind of what you want to do. You kind of want to weigh down your best options from the selection and then pick from them. So I'm going to go with the Warrior. Let's just keep with the theme we've got going on here. So now we've got quite a few good cards. Deathwalk is a very powerful yellow card. It's got a nice stat pool. You could sacrifice something. Sturdy Turtle could be a good creature to sacrifice once the Faeria pool start working. I haven't gone into that just yet, but we'll go into that a little bit later. But I'm still interested in creatures, so I'm just going to go with a Kingsguard again, a nice defensive body, and also interacts with our Gabrian Enchantress. So now you can see a theme going on. I'm definitely taking this card into consideration. However, it can't be the main bulk of the strategy. So if we want the deck to stay kind of on a mid-range angle, we could go for this guy here. However, if we want to slow things down a little bit, we could go for Yak Attack, which could be potentially very powerful later on. And of course there's Runin's Command, which can power up our creatures, but also give us life. Choking Sands and Shaitan Vampire are two others, which could be very good as well. So let's go for Yak Attack. Make some late game. So we're still on blue, we still haven't committed to another colour. Tiki Piper can help us clear stuff on the board. Village Elder gives us a Faeria Gatherer, but also gives us some card draw. And Triton Chef gives us the powerful Triton Banquet event card. So I like the Chef a lot, so I'm going to go for the Chef. So we're sticking with blue at the moment. I don't feel these Explorers are going to do much. Spell Will might have quite an awesome effect. This is a pretty cool card. And kind of keeps the theme of Pandora as well. So let's consider... But this guy could be pretty good too. He's an early drop. He can swim. He's got charge. He could cover the fairy pools very easily. So I'm going to go for the commander. So again, this card has synergies with some of the cards in our deck already. So I want to be a bit consistent with the strategy we've got going on at the moment. So I'm going to go with the Gabrian Enchantment. Alright, another Sturdy Shell, so another Faeria Gatherer. Safeguard could give protection, that could really help as well. Steamforge, so structures are interesting in Pandora. From playing it, I've noticed that structures can kind of be left unchecked for some time because the board development is a little slower in Faeria at the start because you've got to cater to the strengths of your hand based on what lands you develop and of course the strategies of your deck. So I've had Steamforge do a bit of work in my previous draft. However, I wouldn't mind just getting some more Faeria Gatherers. So far we've got 1, 2, 3 Faeria Gatherers. So let's get another shell. So Caretaker synergizes with this deck very well. I think it does more than these guys. He could do something, but again, it's situational. For 3 Faeria, I think Tiki Caretaker overall is a lot better than the Imperial Guard. So I don't want to commit to yellow yet. There's nothing from yellow is really catching my eye. So I'm going to commit to a 2-color deck, and it's going to be green and blue. So another Tiki Caretaker shows up. And we also have a Tiki Chieftain, a Storyteller, which can give us card draw, but also gives it to our opponent. But I think, yeah, Tiki Caretaker again. Such a powerful card. So now the Colossus has synergies with this deck, but it costs 15. It's got a lot of health, but Gabrian Enchantress shows up again. So let's keep with this theme. I'm liking how this deck is going at the moment. So once again, we've got a Walking Fortress. Queen's Favourite's a very popular and powerful card in Constructed. But Punishment also has a lot of power, and this could be when they start leaning towards our events. I think Punishment is a very good one in this format, so I'm going to go for that. Another Enchantress, and a Grove Guardian this time. I think I just prefer... Enchantress is great. Of course, we've established the theme we're going for, but we still need more green cards, and I think Grove Guardian is just too good in this draft here. It's almost like Pandora knows what we want. So looking at these, I'm just going to go with Enchantress. I think that's just an auto-include. It goes along with our theme quite nicely. So we've got a nice kind of early curve going on, but now we need to get into the late game. And the only late game option here is the Colossus. So I'm going to go for the Colossus, although it's quite expensive. I believe we could get it down in the future, especially when the adjustment to the Faeria pools happens. So Wisdom, draw 2 cards. Humbling Vision is another good event that could help us manage the board. Spirit of Rebirth is good Faeria Gatherer, and it can also have a long-term lasting positive effect on our hand if we can keep it in play. However, I quite like Humbling Visions. It's one of those blue cards that can have quite a strong impact, so I'm going to go for that. Verdant Force, unfortunately for you guys, you are not going to be picked. Verdant Force is just too good. Alright, so this pick is a little different. So Tyranax is awesome. It's 4/6. It's good body for its stats. Definitely help us towards the late game. Wood Elemental fuels our Colossus. If we had picked up the previous Colossus, I feel Wood Elemental would be a very good pick. It's also a 3/4 with Taunt, so it's got quite good stats, and it does offer a little bit of protection. And we don't really have any protection against aggro at this point, so let's go for Wood Elemental. So nothing really stands out. Windfall I don't feel will have much impact, so I'll just go for Bone Collector. Gabrian Warden is an awesome card. I'm a big fan of this card. So and Lawfief as well in blue. Lawfief is fantastic too, drawing those cards. So I want to go for the Warden. I want to get that protection. Another Warden as well. Steamforged Enforcer is an awesome 6 cost as well. So if we go for Warden again, we kind of have a deck that helps buff up our high health creatures with the Gabriel Enchantress. And we could give them protection as well. So this deck already for me feels like it's going to fight for board super hard and not relying on events. And we're going to use the tools that we've gathered so far from this draft to make that as easy as possible. And the Gabriel Warden is definitely a strong candidate for that. So Punishment again, it just feels like too much of a good pickup. Where are we on 5? So you've only got 1 5 cost at the moment. No, that's 2. So for the next 8 cards, we really want to bulk up this draft as much as possible. But yeah, Punishment is super. But I'm going to go for the Warrior just because we need to increase the Faeria on our counter there. So now we get our first Legendary. The yellows are just going to be cut out. Shara. She could have a good impact, especially against a deck that packs bigger creatures. Tephra as well can also give us a buff on board, much like Tiki Caretaker does, and let us fight on board for better. But Runin, on the other hand, will be a constant nightmare for our opponent if we draw it. And I think this could work very well in Pandora. So again, lots of neutrals. Could go for another Kingsguard. And that again synergizes with some of the other cards I've been talking about. So I think we'll go for that. Another Warden. Could go for Frogify now instead, so we've got some way to deal with a big creature from our opponent. So I think I'm going to go for an event there. Queen's Guard this time. So Oaklin will buff our hand. I think I like Oaklin just to kind of increase the value of the hand, but Spirit of Rebirth can do that as well. But Oaklin is a much bigger impact in one creature, which is going to be harder to deal with, so I'm going to go for the Oaklin here. You just want to keep giving us punishments. When Runin's Champion, whenever this creature attacks a god, add a random green creature to your hand and it gets +3/+3. So this could be a good late game option for us, and recharge our hand with threats once we start to run out of cards. Breath of Life, redraw a card. Faeria Tree. This is a very board-centric deck, so it's going to be looking to control the board. So I feel that Unbound Evolution will be a fun inclusion. So cost 2 less for each time we harvest from an enemy well. Yeah, I like this. I'm planning to control the board, so the enemy wells are something that's going to be pushed on in the future. And it's 2 less, so it can definitely be a good late game option for us. And that is it. So the Pandora deck is finished. A Pandora match is quite different to a normal game of Faeria. During your matches, artifacts will be shuffled into both decks. Once these cards are drawn, they do a variety of different things, from giving you additional creatures to dealing damage on the board. Once 5 artifacts have been collected, Pandora is unlocked. When Pandora unlocks, the Faeria Wells will no longer generate Faeria after use. Instead, each player will produce 6 Faeria per turn. This will allow you to draft more expensive creatures, making a control archetype a viable strategy. Consistency is your goal when drafting a deck for Pandora. Having access to 3 colours gives you a lot of flexibility, but you don't want to spread yourself out too much. I'd recommend sticking to 2 colour decks to start with. This way you'll avoid having to dictate your land placement based on having too many colours. So that concludes Learn Faeria's guide to Pandora. Next week we will look over good cards to draft along with building decks for specific archetypes. Be sure to check out PlayFaeria.com for all your Faeria needs. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.